6 days out from the NHL trade deadline, there have been 4 trades, 3 of them for depth defensemen in a single day. Here's winners and losers for the day. On February 18th, 6 days before the NHL trade deadline slams shut, there are 4 trades made, 3 of them for depth defensemen. I'm going to read them off here just so I don't screw them up, because I've recorded this now 4 times and I've always screwed up someone's name for no ridiculous reason whatsoever. First, the Ottawa Senators trade Dylan DeMello to the Winnipeg Jets for a 3rd-round pick in 2020. The second trade, the Washington Capitals acquire Brendan Dillon for a 2020 2nd-round pick and a 2021 3rd-round pick, which is conditional based off of him re-signing. The third trade is Marco Scandella going to the St. Louis Blues from the Montreal Canadiens for a 2020 2nd-round pick. There's a theme here. And a 4th-round pick in 2021 that is also conditioned on him re-signing with the Blues. The last trade, the 4th one, I don't know why I did it this way. It's really hard to do 4 this way. My hands don't bend. Is the Carolina Hurricanes acquiring Joey Keane from the New York Rangers, which is a depth defenseman prospect from theirs, for Julien Gauthier, who goes to the Rangers, which is a forward prospect of the Carolina Hurricanes. So let's break this down trade by trade and assign winners and losers at the end. First one is the Ottawa Winnipeg trade. For the Ottawa Senators, they get their 12th pick in the 2020 draft and 7th. 7 picks in the first 3 rounds. Insane. And they're not done yet. They still haven't dealt Anthony Duclair, which they might keep, but they might not. Jean-Gabriel Pageau, which they might keep, they might not. And Tyler Ennis, amongst a bunch of other pending UFAs and RFAs. Like, they got assets to move, and they can still bring in players. If depth defensemen are bringing back 2nd-round picks, the Ottawa Senators have a bunch to burn. And if they can start bringing in 2nd-round picks, oh boy, look out. For the Winnipeg Jets, they get a blue liner that can help them in their top 4 today, right now, and do a pretty good job. He's a good shutdown defenseman and was one of the better defensemen on the Ottawa Senators, aside from Thomas Chabot. Just really good value for the Winnipeg Jets here, and they only had to give up a 3rd-round pick for it. Consider that 2 other guys on this list were Brendan Dillon, needed a 2nd-round pick, and Marco Scandella needed a 2nd-round pick. More on both later, but you can see the theme there and how Ottawa really kind of undersold themselves in this trade. Trade B is between the Washington Capitals and the San Jose Sharks. The Caps acquired Brendan Dillon, which is a man mountain. He's 6'4". He is a big man on the blue line, and is going to help them immensely as they go forward and try to get their 2nd cup in 3 years. He's been there before, not winning cups, but at least getting to the end of the line. He has 62 playoff games under his belt already. He knows how to play in the playoffs, which is exactly what the Capitals need. It's not to say they're short on experience, but when you bring someone in at the deadline, you're bringing them in because they give you something that's going to help you not only just now, but down the road, and that's what Brendan Dillon does. And all they had to give up was a 2nd-round pick. Yes, they also had to give up, a 3rd-round pick in 2021, but that is only on the condition that he re-signs with the Capitals, which is possible, but it's a 3rd-round pick, not just this year, next year. They don't care about that. They're in win-now mode. Win-now teams barely care about the draft picks they have this year, let alone next year. That's 2 years from now's problem. Who cares? So, good value-ish for the Washington Capitals. We'll see how it plays out. Trade C is the one between the Montreal Canadiens and the St. Louis Blues that sent Marco Scandella to the Blues. This one's fascinating because the Montreal Canadiens just picked up Marco Scandella 6 weeks ago? He's been with them for 20 games, hasn't really produced anything. I think he has 3 points. He had 9 points with the Buffalo Sabres before the trade, and has played 1 minute more on average per game with the Habs than he did with the Sabres. And Montreal picked him up from the Sabres for a 4th-round pick and flipped him to the St. Louis Blues for a 2nd-round pick. That's wild GMing. Good job by Marc Bergevin. Not only is he making gains in terms of muscle size, but he's making gains on the draft floor. He went from a 4th-round pick for a guy that did nothing. If anything, he regressed and got more out of him. If that's not dunking on Jason Botterill, I don't know what is. The last trade of the day was made between the New York Rangers and the Carolina Hurricanes, who swapped prospects. The Carolina Hurricanes brought Joey Keane in for Julien Gauthier. Julien Gauthier was a former first-round pick from the Carolina Hurricanes back in 2016. He goes to the Rangers system, who needed forwards, whereas the Carolina system needed defensemen, and the Rangers had a ton of them. So Joey Keane, who has 30 points in 44 games at the AHL level, goes to Carolina. All right, winners and losers. Winner number one, the Winnipeg Jets. They get a really good top four defenseman, defensive defenseman, but still good top four guy for a third-round pick, when second-round picks were flying all over the place for depth defensemen today. Loser number one then becomes the Ottawa Senators, who probably could have got more for Dylan DeMello. There's an interesting piece by Graham Nichols of The Athletic saying that not only could they have got more, but they underused Dylan DeMello, and that's why they could have got more for him. So good job, Ottawa, but you got your third round pick, so who cares, right? Winner number two are the Montreal Canadiens, who dunked on the Buffalo Sabres. Marco Scandella went from a fourth round pick to a second round pick like that. Why? Who knows? He played an extra minute on average more a night, produced even less for Montreal. Montreal still stinks, and they got essentially double? That's wild. That's trade deadline for you. Marc Bergevin noticed a weakness, he picked up on it, and Jason Botterill is looking real silly right now. The second loser is the Buffalo Sabres, who for some reason decided to shop Marco Scandella 6 weeks early. This is what happens when you shop them at the appropriate time when the demand is high. You get good value. The Buffalo Sabres went from getting a fourth round pick that sure enough they traded for Michael Frolik, who has 2 points in 15 games. Good job. To a second round pick just 6 weeks later. For what? Well, he's done nothing. He has done nothing. Marco Scandella has done nothing different than what he was doing in Buffalo, yet they got a second instead of a fourth for him. Good job, Jason Botterill. Good job. If you liked today's video, make sure to hit the subscribe button and never miss another one. First was the Ottawa Senators sending Brendan DeMello.